Welcome to the Clackamas County Planning Commission, August 28, 2022. The public hearing is now open for consideration.
No. Oh. Hang on, Mark. We need to do the roll call and the public comment and the award presentation, and then launch into the hearing. So roll call is first.
Trying to find. No, but okay, Commissioner Stevens.
Sorry, here.
Commissioner Pasco.
Present. Sorry, Darcy.
That's okay. Commissioner Pack.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Commissioner Schrodel.
Present.
Commissioner Lopes.
Here.
Commissioner Moss. And Commissioner Peterson. And both Commissioner Moss and Peterson are excused from the meeting tonight.
Commissioner Murphy is here.
Oh, Commissioner Murphy. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Darcy. Is it public comment time, or are we moving to DLCD at this time?
No, it'd be public comment time. Of course, just if there's somebody in the audience who wants to make a comment that does not relate to anything to the public hearing item tonight.
Okay.
So it looks like, Darcy, we do have a hand up from the audience.
I have Diana Helm.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm used to seeing something on the screen that lets me know I'm part of the meeting. So if this is in relation to the agenda item, you don't want public comment now?
Correct. That'll come later. It's just for general comment now if you've got something else to bring to the Planning Commission.
No, it has to do with the agenda item. So, okay, thank you.
I saw that the chat is back on. Is that something that we're going to have back on again once we took it off due to an issue at one time?
The chat is set so that only panelists can chat. Attendees are not able to.
Hey, next, we move to DLCD.
Great. Thank you. My chat, that I didn't mean to disrupt that cart on you all, was from me. For the record, my name is Sadie Carney, and I am our staff liaison at the Department of Land Conservation and Development to the Citizen Involvement Advisory Committee. And I was sharing, excuse me, the news. I learned this afternoon that our CIAC chair, Leah Rausch, who had hoped to attend your meeting this evening and present this award, had a personal commitment come up and get in the way. And so she asked that I present her the CIAC's ACE Award on her behalf. And I'm happy to say that I am also joined this evening by the new regional rep for Clackamas County, Kelly Reed, who started working for us at DLCD. So when I'm finished delivering my comments, I'll turn it over to her and give her an opportunity to say hello. So the aim of the Citizen Involvement Advisory Committee, or CIAC, let me get my notes here, is to increase the public's involvement in land use planning and to promote best practices in community engagement around the state. And today, I am pleased to present the Clackamas County Planning staff with a 2022 Achievement in Community Engagement Award. So Clackamas County is one of 3 recognized jurisdictions this year, and my very big congratulations. The ACE Award recognizes unique and innovative engagement recognizes the unique and innovative engagement process Clackamas County used to perform multicultural outreach for middle housing, which I think I heard about at the top of the meeting. With leadership from Principal Planner Martha Fritzie and funding provided by a DLCD grant, county planning staff did tremendous work engaging the many multicultural communities in urban unincorporated Clackamas County. For your county, as many of you probably know, this meant engaging community leaders and others from communities that identify as Vietnamese, Chinese, Slavic, Native American, Black, and others. These are not community members who typically participate in conversations about planning or zoning code amendments. And the process focused on really building relationships within Clackamas County and within those communities that are long-term. And that's the kind of relationship building that will continue to have benefits for the planning process and the community conversations in Clackamas County, and really helps us to establish and elevate best practices related to Goal 1 for communities and counties and planning efforts around the state. So you can be very proud of this effort and the work of your planning staff. I am so sorry to say that my committee assistant for the CIAC, I'm not sorry to say she's been on vacation in New Zealand for a month, but that is the reason that your award is not in your hands right now. So we will be getting that in the mail. I think she's back yesterday or maybe today, but we will get that in the mail and deliver it to, I think, you, Karen. I will have that delivered to your attention, so you should see that shortly. So again, my congratulations, and Kelly, I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Sadie. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Reed. I'm your new regional representative from DLCD. So I cover all of Clackamas, all the jurisdictions within Clackamas County and Multnomah County, including the counties themselves. So I'm your kind of first point of contact with this state department whenever you need to work with us. And I'm really excited to be still working in Clackamas County. I just spent almost the past 10 years as a planner for Oregon City. So I am very familiar with parts of the county, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you all. I'm glad to see some familiar faces like Karen, who I've worked with extensively over the years. So I'm sure this won't be the last you'll see of me, and hopefully it'll be a great future working together. So thank you. Oh, and of course, congratulations on your award. It's great to see the county winning awards like this, and you all do great work. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I did want to just jump in and say a couple of more words. I feel very honored to work with both Martha Fritzie and Joy Fields. Joy also was instrumental in making this grant work happen. She facilitated. So Martha managed the entire project, and Joy really helped out in the whole process of facilitating the grant, and both of them worked together with the consultant partners and the outreach to our local groups. I thought it was really important that we gave this type of outreach a try, right? It wasn't something that we've done on a consistent basis, and trying to, we're always looking for new ways to reach out to new people, to engage with them about these really important issues. So I was very pleased to see that the county had received this award, but I did want to highlight the importance of both of those people with regards to making this happen.
Awesome.
It was huge work. Amazing.
Yes.
just going through the process of the hearing for mental housing, it was awesome to read all those testimonies, all those questions from so many different nationalities, and the kinds of, you know, people are people. They all worry and think about mostly the same thing, but to see that massive work that went into it and the input, so valuable. First time I've ever felt we heard from everybody. So well done.
Well done. Yep.
Well, again, I know that Chair Roush really extends her congratulations as well and wishes she could have been here this evening. And perhaps we will see you again in a year to come when we again recognize you for fantastic work like this. So keep it up.
Well, thank you. And thanks for being here tonight, both of you. We appreciate it.
Anyone, commissioners that want to comment?
I was just going to jump in really quickly. This is probably a discussion that can't happen tonight, but I'd be really curious if we've spent any time, or if we could dedicate some time to think about what parts of, you know, you all obviously did amazing work with under a grant restriction, right? And to me, the question is, are there things that we learned about that we could figure out in a non-grant scenario to incorporate in the public testimony and the public comment processing for all the other issues that come before us moving forward? And I assume that there were some really good lessons learned there, and I hope we're taking the time to capture those and thinking about how to incorporate them moving forward.
Excellent comment. Yeah, in fact, with this experiment, I guess, so to speak, with DLCD, would they have an open grant that could possibly expand this type of project for Clackamas County or other counties to where you could be a little more creative on how you reached out, and instead of being tied to a restrictive grant?
I'll chime in to say I think that DLCD has lots of different funding sources for projects like that. Community engagement, diverse community engagement is certainly one of the major goals of our agency as well, and so we would be happy to and thrilled to support the county in efforts like that. And I'm happy to work with your staff on what funding opportunities are out there.
And I'm taking notes to pass along because Kelly's really the boots on the ground. I take the notes and report back to, right, like the guys in charge. So.
Anyone else? Well, I applaud planning for doing what you have done. You have been so efficient with the meetings that you've created for the Planning Commission. It's really something to look forward to, and we do have meetings. As you know, I get quite enthusiastic about this, and this is really, you feel a part of your community taking part in this. You know, makes me want to get down and study hard to look at different angles or whatever I can bring, and that's just because of the people I'm working with. And thank you, DLCD, for giving this opportunity to Clackamas County and the award. Thank you, Joy, for your efforts. And Martha, you're always fun to work with. I mean, you always have such great, both of you have so much information. Karen, awesome. You've been around since I've been around. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Jennifer, you know, same thing. Awesome. Okay. Should we move on?
Looks like it. You can move to the script.
Okay. Sorry about that earlier.
No worries.
Okay, again, welcome to Clackamas County Planning Commission. Did you have something to say, Joy? Okay. Thank you. Take care. Okay. Welcome to the Clackamas County Planning Commission, August 22nd, 2022. The public hearing is now open for the consideration of ZDO 284 Transportation System Plan Update for the Damascus Mobility Plan, a legislative proposal to amend Clackamas County's comprehensive plan. Assisting us in the hearing today are several members of the county staff, Principal Transportation Planner Stephen Williams, Principal Planner Martha Fritzie, Long Range Planner Manager Karen Buick. The public hearing is being conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include members of the Planning Commission and county staff, have both audio and visual capability. If the panelist is participating with audio but not video, members of the audience will not see the panelist's name on their screen, but will be able to hear them when they speak. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website as soon as possible. The Planning Commission is charged with making a recommendation on the application to the Board of County Commissioners. The record from this hearing will be forwarded to the board, which will make a final decision on the matter. The board will conduct another hearing on the application on September 28, 2022 at 10 a.m. That hearing will be de novo, meaning that the hearing will be started anew and additional testimony may be offered. Tonight's hearing will not go beyond 10 p.m. unless a majority of the planning commissioners in attendance vote to continue past that time. If not concluded, it will be continued to a date and time certain. The hearing may be continued for other reasons as well. If an announcement of an additional hearing date and time is made tonight, it will be the only notice given of that additional hearing. This public hearing will be conducted as follows. Number one, Transportation Planning Division staff report. Number two, into the record of any additional correspondence received. 3, technical information from other government agencies. 4, testimony by representatives of recognized community planning organizations or hamlets. Maximum length, 10 minutes per CPO or hamlet. 5, testimony by any other person. Maximum length, 3 minutes per speaker, more as determined by the chair. 6, closing of the public hearing. 7, the Planning Commission will discuss and action. Testimony. There will be a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The chair will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom. Attendants on PC or iPad, you have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar, top or bottom, depending on your device. Attendees by telephone use *9 to activate raise hand features. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a moment. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who's speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. For the record, please begin by stating your name and where you're from or whom you are representing. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. Staff report. Transportation Planning Division staff will now present the staff report. Are there any questions from the commission?
Did you want to say something, as we start here, Karen, or you want me to just jump in?
Sure, I was just going to say a few words. It's good to be back here at the Planning Commission. As you may remember, we did provide a kind of an overview of this project back in May at a study session with the Planning Commission. It is a project that has been underway for quite some time, and both Steve and Martha have been engaged in developing this proposal this evening. And so with that, I actually am just going to hand it over to Steve, and he'll be able to provide you with a short overview of the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. All right, well, this evening, as Karen mentioned, I'm going to be presenting to you about the draft Damascus Mobility Plan, which has been developed specifically to serve as, or to provide an update to the county transportation system plan for the specific Damascus area, which has not been included as part of the county's transportation system plan, or has not, maybe I should say, has not had specific transportation plans since the city disincorporated. And so this action tonight that we're proposing to you is a step in that direction. As Karen mentioned, we hope it will go to the county board on September 28th, and that they will approve it. And if they do, at that point, it will become the transportation system plan. It will be amended into the county's transportation system plan and serve as the transportation document for the area of the former city. So without any more ado, I wanted to get into my presentation. I'm going to need to share my screen here. Is that going to create a problem for anybody? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so if you give me just a moment. And where are you? Oh, there it is. I always have a hard time finding those things. Okay, so here is the presentation screen, and we will maximize this so that we can see. There's the little thing. There we go. Okay, so this is file ZDO 284, update of the comprehensive plan, chapter 5 for the Damascus Mobility Plan. And this is August 22nd, and I am Stephen Williams. So the purpose of this meeting tonight, the purpose of the Transportation System Plan is that the Oregon revised statutes require that all cities and counties have an adopted TSP to identify existing and future transportation needs based on adopted zoning. The county TSP was last updated in 2013 when Damascus was a city. When Damascus disincorporated in 2016, the responsibility of preparing a TSP for the Damascus area fell to Clackamas County. So Clackamas County staff has been working for the past year to develop an update to the adopted transportation system, county transportation system plan to have specific policies and projects in the Damascus area. So the Damascus Mobility Plan is, as noted, intended to result in a transportation system plan for the Damascus area that is completely consistent with the county's adopted transportation system plan, adopted on or based on the county's adopted zoning, that does not require any changes to the county's adopted transportation policies, and is based on the adopted county population and employment forecasts. The Damascus Mobility Plan identifies street and intersection needs to address near and long-term vehicular and freight congestion and safety issues in the Damascus area. It's also intended to address congestion and safety issues at intersections along the Oregon 212 corridor between Southeast 187th and Southeast 242nd, and to incorporate ODOT's proposed improvements. In addition, this plan is designed to work in I guess, in conjunction with the county's recently adopted transit development plan, and also with the active transportation plan, which is being developed to address walking, biking, and then, of course, the transit needs in the transit development plan in the Damascus area. The county is coordinated closely with ODOT and the city of Happy Valley, and both those organizations participated in the development of this plan. This is a map of the area that is addressed by the county's transportation system plan. It is in this area right here that is shown in gray. Can you guys see my cursor? I don't hear anyone saying anything, so I'll take that as a yes. So
Yes,
this
we
is
can.
okay. Thank you, Martha. This is the area that's being addressed by this plan. This, of course, is the city of Happy Valley that's shown in this kind of buff color here. And then we have this area in between, which is shown in a blue dashed line. And this is what is being called the Pleasant Valley North Carver Plan area, which is an expansion of the Happy Valley plans for land use, transportation, and other systems to the east into the western part of the Damascus area. Let's see, are you going or not? There we go, finally. Okay, so the development of the Damascus Mobility Plan took place in several steps. We conducted a traffic analysis of 17 intersections in Damascus using traffic data that was collected pre-pandemic in April of 2019. There was a safety assessment, a traffic safety assessment for the period from January 2015 to December 2019, a 5-year period. And then there was a study also done of the existing Damascus area transportation system. And but through those steps, 22 projects were identified as being necessary for improvements to the transportation system in Damascus. And it was actually a fairly straightforward list of projects. There were really 3 kinds of projects generally throughout those 22. The first one was to add turning lanes at some of the intersections in Damascus that have higher turning volumes. It was also identifying roads at intersections that needed to be realigned to improve safety. You're probably aware that there are a number of intersections in the Damascus area where the roads on 2 sides of the intersection don't align, creating sort of an awkward situation for traffic from either side of the road and an unsafe situation to get back and forth. And then finally, the plan proposes adding shoulders on arterial and collector roads as called for in the adopted county TSP and the county road use standards. The major project tasks included evaluating existing and future traffic volumes and crash patterns, and that was supplemented by public feedback from a project open house conducted just about a year ago in August 2021, developing and evaluating alternatives in the Damascus area, as well as for the Oregon 212 intersections, prioritizing projects using the county's transportation system plan criteria, and then incorporating public feedback from a second public open house in March of 2022 to create the final project list and to create the final project document. The prioritization of the proposed projects put them into 3 categories, which are the same 3 categories that are used in the adopted TSP. Tier 1 projects are capital projects that are needed within the next 20 years and have been matched with anticipated funding. Tier 2 projects are preferred capital projects that meet a need for population housing and employment projects, but do not have identified funding. And then Tier 3 projects are long-term transportation capital projects that would be beneficial if funding were available. There was an extensive public engagement process that occurred as part of the development of the Damascus Mobility Plan. One of the challenging aspects of the Damascus Mobility Plan was that it was developed entirely during the pandemic. And so there were no face-to-face meetings in the course of the development of the Damascus Mobility Plan. Public engagement was entirely conducted as a virtual online process. And you can see in the diagram at the bottom there that, sort of the 5 steps that went into the development of the plan that is before you for consideration this evening. Data gathering, 2 public rounds of public input through open houses, and then a report to the committee, report to the community through presentations to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners in May of this year. Due to the pandemic, public engagement for the Damascus Mobility Plan was conducted entirely as a virtual online process. And we did several things in the course of that process to try to reach as many people as we possibly could and secure input from them with regard to the Damascus Mobility Plan. Postcards in English and Spanish were mailed to every residence and business in Damascus. Social media was used extensively for project announcements and spotlights on aspects of the project during the year when the development of the Damascus Mobility Plan was underway. A project website was created that featured surveys and input pieces that were revised regularly to focus on the aspects of the development of the plan that were at that time underway. We also had 2 online open houses as well as a Zoom public meeting. And we had a virtual meeting with the Damascus CPO and an in-person presentation at a CPO-sponsored community workshop. Over 600 people participated in one way or another in the public engagement for the Damascus Mobility Plan, including visiting the online open houses and viewing the available materials and providing comments or participating in surveys. As noted earlier, we identified 22 projects in the Damascus area to include in the proposed Damascus Mobility Plan. The regional projects are sorted into 3 categories that I mentioned earlier: high, medium, and regional projects by priority, which are regional projects are those that are not under the county's control, but are being undertaken by another organization or government, such as ODOT, the City of Happy Valley, or some other organization like that. And so those, we call those 4,000 projects, and they fall into high, medium, and low priorities for Clackamas County. And then county projects by priority are sorted into Tier 1, which we call the 1,000s, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Again, the area in the blue dashes is the planned Pleasant Valley North Carver area. And then we have over here in the buff the existing Happy Valley city boundary, and in the gray, the Damascus Mobility Plan study area. So we identified a total of 22 projects. There were 6 Tier 1 projects, the highest priority category, and they had a total estimated cost of just over $9 million. There were 5 Tier 2 projects with a total estimated cost of $9.7 million, and then 11 Tier 3 projects with a total cost of $41.2 million, for a total of $72.9 million for all of those projects. We also identified some county TSB amendments that needed to occur to bring the Damascus mobility plan and integrate it into the existing TSP. The TSP has 4 tables in it that show the projects that have been prioritized by the county in the TSP. And so it is necessary to bring the Damascus projects that are proposed into those tables. Table 5-3A is the 20-year capital projects. 5-3B is the preferred projects. 5-3C, the long-term capital projects. And 5-3D are the regional capital projects. As I noted earlier, there are 22 proposed prioritized projects on county roads. In your packet, you also received a printed copy of the Damascus Mobility Plan, and all of the projects are shown on pages 37 to 41 of that draft document if you want to look at them in there. In addition, there are the 7 regional projects of concern that were identified for the Damascus area, and those are shown on page 42 in the draft document. In addition to those tables, we also have a map that appears in the Damascus Mobility Plan called Map 5-11A, which is the capital improvement plan for the entire county, but we have show on a revised version of the map that appears in your packet on page 43, a version that includes the 22 Damascus projects. We are also proposing to add the Damascus Mobility Plan to the Comprehensive Plan Appendix B, which is where the projects that are part of the Comprehensive Plan, but not under the same cover, are housed. And then we identified several text amendments. They're relatively minor text amendments, but they need to be done to remove references to the city of Damascus, and also to amend definitions of rural and urban that were not consistent in the existing transportation system plan with the definitions that we used for the Damascus area. Let's see, are not moving. Have to do this manually. We also, in the course of developing the Damascus Mobility Plan, had to focus on consistency with statewide planning goals. Those of you who are familiar with the state law for planning are aware that the state has established 19 statewide planning goals, and every municipality that produces a plan is expected to address those 19 goals in some fashion. The main one related to transportation system plans is Goal 12, and the purpose of Goal 12 is to ensure that the county's transportation system is adequate to serve land uses that the county has planned. The proposed transportation projects are sufficient to serve the additional land uses in the Damascus area as they exist today. The other goals, goals 1 to 11 and 13 to 15, don't really speak to transportation, but they don't impact our proposals for the Damascus Mobility Plan at all. And so those goals are consistent with the proposals in the Damascus Mobility Plan. And finally, goals 16 to 19 specifically address coastal resources and are not applicable in Clackamas County. So we also, in our plan, need to be consistent with the Metro Regional Transportation Functional Plan, and we conducted a review of the Damascus Mobility Plan for consistency with the Metro Regional Transportation Functional Plan, and we determined that it is consistent with the Metro Regional Transportation Functional Plan. And we provided a notice of this proposal as well as a copy of the Damascus Mobility Plan to Metro to allow them to review it for consistency. They notified us that they had no comments, which is in essence a statement on their part that they believe it to be consistent. In addition, the Damascus Mobility Plan and really the TSP needs to be found to be consistent with two chapters of the county comprehensive plan. The first is that public involvement activities need to be conducted during the development of the Damascus Mobility Plan in a manner that is consistent with and will satisfy the requirements of Chapter 2 of the County Comprehensive Plan. And in addition, the Damascus Mobility Plan and the process that was used to develop it needs to be determined to be consistent with the Chapter 11 requirements in the comprehensive plan for intergovernmental and interagency coordination, and also consistency with statewide planning goals. And so both of those conditions were met in the course of the development of the Damascus Mobility Plan. It also has to be determined that the Damascus Mobility Plan is consistent with the county's zoning and development ordinance. And so the proposed text amendments in the Transportation System Plan or the Damascus Mobility Plan are considered to be legislative and must follow the procedures laid out in state requirements as well as in the county zoning and development ordinance. This proposal, the Damascus Mobility Plan, was provided to DLCD at least 35 days before the first scheduled public hearing to allow an opportunity to review and comment on the proposed amendment, and advertised public hearings must be held before both the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. And we're, of course, meeting the requirement for the Planning Commission this evening. Let's see, where are you? No, not yet. Okay, so recommendations. The staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of ZDO 284, meaning the Damascus Mobility Plan, to the Board of County Commissioners, including the updates that are proposed to tables 5.3A, the 20-year capital projects, 5.3B, the preferred projects, 5.3C, the long-term capital projects, and 5.3D, the regional capital projects. We also recommend the update to map 5-11A, the capital improvement plan, and we recommend the text amendments to the comprehensive plan, chapter 5, transportation system plan, and appendix B, summary of supporting documents. And so that is my presentation with regard to the amendment to comprehensive plan, chapter 5, transportation system plan for the Damascus Mobility Plan. And I am happy to respond to any questions that anyone might have at this time.
Are there any questions from staff or the commission?
I'm sorry, I have one. I was just wondering, Steve, if you could elaborate. One of your slides mentioned the Damascus CPO, and
Yes.
to my knowledge, does this Damascus CPO exist? Who was that?
Well, there is a Damascus CPO, or at least there was in April, and I attended a meeting of that group. It looks like Martha has her hand up.
The Damascus CPO has reformed, Brian.
Okay.
They've done
That's
whatever
right.
it is
I
they have to do
vaguely
within
remember
counties.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's been probably close to a year now, almost.
Okay. And I was just curious. I mean, I appreciate that you reached out to Damascus, but there was no effort, it seems to, when I spoke to the boring CPO leaders 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were pretty unfamiliar with this whole project. And I was wondering why there was no effort to outreach to that group.
Well, as noticed, our focus was in Damascus, and maybe we were being a tad legalistic, but the defined boundary for the boring CPO does not, overlap the Damascus CPO area. And so we were focused on the Damascus CPO area and the area of the former city.
I think that was a mistake, but that's bygones. I mean, I think the people in the boring community certainly experience the same traffic issues that come through 212, and we travel to Damascus quite frequently. So,
and we understand that, and certainly we are making plans for a TSP update sooner rather than later. And when we do that, we will be addressing the entire unincorporated area of the county, including boring.
thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, I have a question. You had 22 projects up there, $72 million, I believe is what you had. What's the time frame for that? Is that a 10-year schedule, or is that 5? What are we talking about here as far as timeline?
Do you remember in my presentation, I mentioned there were 3 tiers. There was tier 1, which was the highest priority. Tier 2, sort of the second priority, and tier 3 are the, sort of long-term projects. The tier 1 projects, there are 6 of them, and those are projects that we identified that could be done with funds that we expected to have available in the next 20 years. Tier 2 projects are projects that we hope to be able to do with available funds, either from our transportation funding sources or from grants. Tier 3 projects are those that don't have a funding source, but are eligible to be submitted for consideration for grants or other sources like that. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that, Karen? You often deal with this a lot more than I do.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I think all of them have been identified as needed within the next 20 years, but really, when it comes down to it, we only anticipate funding to be able to fund about 15% of them. So that is what that top tier 1 projects are. If we happen to come about more funding than we anticipated, just like Steve said, if we happen to get more grants, if there are increases in revenue streams, we would really be looking to those tier 2 projects to fund next. And then the tier 3 are like, we know there are needs, but we really don't know how those are going to be funded.
So what I'm hearing is the tier 1, you're looking at funding for 20 years. Is that right?
Correct.
And I saw your list of how the priorities were set up. I didn't notice anything in there about safety concerns. Was that already built into it? Or were those projects just the priorities set there without considering what was safety issues?
No, as a matter of fact, the main projects that we considered were safety projects, particularly around the intersections in Damascus, and to some extent what we call operations projects that will improve the operation of traffic in those intersections.
So you built into this some idea about the population growth out there, and also what about the development of industry out there? Was that built into it or not?
Yes, it is. That's incorporated into our land use plans, and the transportation plan that we've developed is intended or set up to serve the land use plans that the county has for that area.
Good. Now, on that second or third screen you showed where you laid out, where Happy Valley was and this Pleasant Valley corridor there were some items on there that were in green. What were those specific pieces there?
Hold on just a moment. Let me go back to that. You said it was early on in the presentation?
Yeah, I think it was the second or third screen that you showed.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's down there, number 5.
Oh, it's number 5. Okay, that one. Oh,
Yeah,
I
there were
see.
some items over in green that were,
These-
seemed like they were part of the project.
They're not part of the project. Those are parks and natural areas.
Okay, those are parts. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Carrie, you had your hand up?
I was curious about funding, and Commissioner Wilson's question resolved my questions. Thank you.
Did you get that, Steve?
Oh, excuse me. I had thought that.
Yeah,
Commissioner-
my questions were resolved with Commissioner Wilson's question and responses to. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Steve Schroedel?
I lowered my hand.
Oh, okay. I have a question or two, as usual. I only counted 21 projects.
You did, huh?
33 is not listed. For some
Project 23 is not listed.
3183. Southeast 187th going.
Yeah, okay. And the reason for that is, and I guess I probably should have corrected that, is that when we initially drafted this, when we can, develop the plan, we had 22 projects. And one of them was improvements on 187th between Sunnyside and 212. And it was pointed out to us that that 187th was actually in Happy Valley. And so we put our heads together with the staff from Happy Valley, and it turns out that the way the boundary of Happy Valley is drawn, it actually falls on the east side of 187th, meaning it is entirely within the city of Happy Valley. And so at that point, we removed it, but didn't change the number from 22 to 21.
Could we make that note?
Yes, we can change that, sure.
Thank you. Also, I have a question about goal number 5 in the transportation system plan, and that provides an equitable transportation system. Right now, if I lost my driver's license for some reason up here in Brightwood and had to go to Sunnyside Hospital, let's say for a checkup or something like that, how do I take mass transit? Is there a mass transit that goes through this particular area? And is that planned in the future? I mean, I can't go to the phone and put in 2 addresses and come up with a transportation system that I could follow. And I would really like to see that, because that's my own personal.
Sure. And in our transit development plan, transit in the Damascus area was addressed. Karen, Karen actually developed our transit development plan, so maybe she has something she'd like to say on that.
Right. So what I would say is that this area currently is not within the TriMet service district, but it is an area that we have been talking with our partners about with regards to the need for service through this area. So how should this area be served? And so there was a discussion during that conversation. So we are really looking at our partners such as Sandy to be able to think about ways to connect through that area to the Clackamas Regional Center area. I think there are other services such as transportation reaching people that do provide medical services or services for medical purposes to people who live within that area. That's a program within Clackamas County. But for consistent, transit on a fixed route, there isn't anything there now, but there is hopes to provide transit there in the future.
Thank you on that. And also I had input from a family foundation administrator I'm meeting with in a few days, that was expressing that she would ride her bike if she could to a transit area. She lives in Damascus on Southeast Royers Ave, and she says she's 6 miles away from taking mass transit to downtown Portland, and she would gladly ride a bike, but it's too dangerous. So expanding the shoulders, putting in bike lanes is way overdue. I spent 6 years paving 212, not when I was with the highway division on an extra gang. In the summer, we'd go and do some stamp patches out there. And that's a scary place. And I can't imagine doing it now. I mean, the traffic volume has probably doubled since that time. Thank you, Stephen, Karen, for doing this, because we need it desperately. And I had been looking at around Kittleson and Associates, and they're an expert, or appears to be a leader on roundabouts. I brought that up during our workshops, and I'm sure they would gladly entertain looking at roundabout possibilities throughout Damascus area to bring safety and traffic movements, modernize anyway.
Yeah. And you may have noticed on a lot of those intersection improvements, they were identified as, stop, signal, or roundabout as the possible traffic control.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah.
Murph, this is Shredel. I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Stephen, on page 37 of the Damascus mobility plan, it references or shows the traffic area in Damascus. How would the residents come down Sunnyside and go across the street to Anderson Road?
That is not a design, that's not a full design for that intersection. And so what would happen before that intersection was designed is that there would be a traffic study done to determine which movements were needed and were safe. And then when they determined what those were, then they would design the intersection to serve those movements. So this is simply an idea that our consultants had that has not been considered at all, and shouldn't be considered adopted if this plan eventually gets approved.
I'm just aware of the traffic incidence level at that corridor, and that intersection is
it's a high credit location.
I travel it frequently, and
yeah.
I would, if I was coming from Andreessen back to Sunnyside, I would choose to go through the parking lot to get to the stoplight. And I'm sure that they don't appreciate that, but it's safer.
Yeah, and that is the intersection that ODOT identified as the #1 priority in their process on Highway 212.
Yeah. Thank you for all the work you've done on this.
Anyone else? Michael?
One more question about the priority of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Do you have any statistics on what the folks that you contacted out there in Damascus, what their priority was on these projects, or was their input not available?
No, we asked them to give us their input on which projects were most important. So we didn't ask them to put them into 1, 2, and 3. We actually just asked them to put them in order, their order of priority. And then we went through that list and figured out, what the highest priority project was, that we had received input on, the second one, so forth and so on, to create those lists.
Great, that's a good approach.
Steve, can I ask one more question? When you say ODOT considers the Sunnyside Anderson 212 intersection its #1 priority, what does that actually mean? Because I mean, honestly, this community's been hearing that for 20 years plus, right? What does that mean? And when do we think that they're actually going to have the political will to actually create a solution there?
Well, as I say, it's their #1 priority. It's, you know, they recently completed a study of this corridor from 187th out to 242nd. And they have put this #1, and they have it identified for funding within the next 5 years. Now, of course, anytime you say an ODOT project is identified for funding, there's a caveat on that, that the legislature has to give them the money so that they can build projects. But this is, you know, in their top priority category.
The problem is that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would add, I mean, I don't think that it is on their current projected list for 24, 27. I think one of the challenges that is faced with the Sunnyside Highway 212 intersection is that improvements there need to be paired with improvements to Foster Road and the signal at Sunnyside there, as well as a new connection that would occur to the north through the area that is being planned by Happy Valley. So there's a set of improvements that have to happen together in order for them all to work, and which will be somewhat driven by both development and then the appropriate timing of investment. So I guess I just wanted to be clear about that with regards to
that's helpful.
how those things happen.
The problem is, in the meantime, right, Happy Valley gets no pain out of this. And instead, we have a Damascus mobility plan where 2/3 of the Tier 1 projects are for the benefit of Happy Valley's extension, right? And so Happy Valley can come up with tons of money to widen all these roads, exacerbating the problem at that particular intersection with no plan to resolve it. And meanwhile, the people in the unincorporated part of Damascus have to continue living with that safety problem, which is just going to get worse, and with no political will from the state to actually solve the problem. You know that I'm having a real challenge with this, right? And then we've got more projects down 212 that are putting signals in, which is going to slow all of the traffic through there even more, because there's no big solution at the major problem point intersection that needs to be resolved. I'm frustrated that the county, you know, I've been on this commission for 8 years, and I've watched this, you know, City of Milwaukee and Oregon City and Happy Valley get everything they want time and time again. And it is coming at the detriment of the people in the unincorporated areas, which this commission is supposed to be representing and supporting. And I'm having a real issue with how many of the projects in both Tier 1 and half of the Tier 2 projects are essentially for the benefit of Happy Valley. They're not for the benefit of Damascus and those surrounding unincorporated counties, communities. So I'll put that out there, and I'm happy to, I'm interested in the public testimony and hearing where we go from here.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. My 48 years living up on this end of the county, you know, the road hasn't changed that much. And if I look up the history of 212 and the history of Foster roads, you know, 212 goes back, I found a map, the Hastings Foster Milwaukee Road, you know, so it was going to a grist mill, I think in the Malino area or something like that, in the Milwaukee area from Foster Farms. And Foster Road was developed, God, I have the original submission of that, and it was designed for wagons, you know, and these roads were designed for wagons, and they haven't changed that much. The right-of-ways were 60 feet on Foster Road. They need to be wider. They need to accommodate other forms of transportation. And the loads that are being put on them. If we have a holiday weekend and there's people that have to get to a hospital in an ambulance down 212 to reach Sunnyside Hospital, how do you do that if you have to go through Sunnyside Road? And that's, I know exactly what you're talking about, because you may have to wait 15, 20, 30 minutes to get from Boring to Damascus. Anyone else?
Murph, are you and Brian contesting the priorities they put on these various projects?
Well, I know that we're strapped for money, and the road of concern is a state highway. So, you know, are we talking to the right bunch? You know, should we be talking to ODOT? How come they're not sitting at this table right now? You know,
Now we're talking about whether we're going to recommend this mobility plan. Are we then going to get mired in whether the projects that they've selected priorities to be issues?
Well, this is our time to voice, and yes, I would definitely myself recommend this, because they are road improvements that are needed. But I do have to voice while I have the chance. So this is one of my chances, Michael.
Since my name was mentioned, I'll just chime in. I'm really interested in hearing the public testimony. I personally, at this point, I really don't feel that we should be allowing the Happy Valley widenings and those pieces to move forward without a global solution. Supposedly ODOT has been part of this process. They understand the problem, but it's going to take the county putting some pressure on ODOT to actually get this solution done. And continuing to pass these plans like this is not going to create the pressure that's actually going to solve the problem at that intersection that people have been asking for 25 years. And it is always, other priorities are always put above this particular intersection, and it's been that way for a quarter of a century. So that's where I'm at right now.
So you're recommending that we not approve this, or we send it back for additional amendments or something like that?
I would really like
what are you proposing, Brian?
I'd like to hear the public testimony before I comment on that. Let's hear the public testimony, and then we can move into deliberation. I'm really interested in hearing what people had to say.
Okay. Do we have anybody waiting, Darcy?
So I'm playing the part of Darcy right now because Darcy's a little under the weather. And I think we're at G on the script. And then we'll go to H.
Okay. Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than items included in the meeting packets?
Up in transportation, or excuse me, in engineering, we didn't receive any comments on this after the conclusion of the public comment periods earlier.
Okay.
Well, I'll go along with whatever Brian and Murph want. I mean, I think they have more knowledge on this project, this proposal than I do.
Okay, well, I think Stephen just answered the next one, which is, are there any other government agencies here to provide technical information related to this proposal? Please use the raise hand feature if you're in the audience or wish to testify on behalf of the government agency. Martha, is there anyone in the audience who has their hand raised?
No.
I would, Chair Murphy, I will say that ODOT contacted us and said they'd reviewed the plans and they didn't have any comments.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, we're moving on. Testimony. Are there any representatives from the community planning organizations or hamlets here to speak? Each organization will have 10 minutes to testify using the raised hand feature if you're in the audience and wish to testify on behalf of the CPO or hamlet. Martha, are there anyone in the audience who has raised their hand?
I do not see any, no.
Are there any more questions from the commission at this point? Okay. Does any other person wish to speak on this proposal? Each person will have 3 minutes to testify. Please use the raise hand feature if you are in the audience and wish to testify. Martha, are there anyone in the audience who has their hand raised?
Yes, I have Diana Helm first, and then Christine is on deck.
Okay.
So I'm pulling Diana over.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. And thank you, commissioners and county staff. I really appreciate the information I've gotten so far. I've read through all your packets. My name is Diana Helm. I've lived in Damascus nearly 30 years. I have a business on the corner of Highway 212 and Foster Road, so I get to hear the T-bone crashes at Sunnyside on a pretty regular basis. We've rescued a few people out of their cars. I spent a small portion of my life working on a TSP for Damascus, and then the city, of course, dissolved. I do want to make one correction. The CPO that dismantled and reformed was actually in April or May of this year. So you have not heard from the new CPO, I'm pretty certain. The old CPO did not, I will say, they did not represent the bulk of people in Damascus. So I had to say that. I served on the Pleasant Valley North Carver Citizen Advisory Committee for 16 months. So I've also been a part of that process. My biggest concerns, and I was trying to go through, and you've answered a couple of them this evening, Stephen, and I appreciate that, was the on page 37, at that intersection map of Sunnyside Road and Highway 212. And I realize this is an ODOT issue. And I know in speaking with ODOT, when we were a city, it was really, really difficult to get them on board. It was their facility, it was their highway, and I kind of understand how that works. But if people are coming up Sunnyside Road, how are they going to go east? I know you've put in an island, so they can't take a left, and then you've put in another island on the map on Highway 212. And I know from watching what happens to those in Happy Valley up on Misty Drive, they just drive right through them. So I think in order to try to fix one problem, you're creating another. So that's my number one concern, which is even bizarre that that's my number one, because number two is the widening of Foster Road as it comes down to 212 almost hits my building. I mean, I could literally have a car in my building. So you're widening Foster Road, which I don't disagree with, even though ODOT just spent several $1 million putting in ADA ramps there in the last couple of years, which are going to all have to go away. But I would say rather than encroaching on two small businesses is to maybe widen to the east over on the Safeway side and take out some of their landscaping, which I think they have room to spare, whereas I don't. I have little room, if any, to spare for parking as it is. I have a very thriving business. I plan to be there for many years to come. And I would just ask to be more equitable if you could not encroach on the two small businesses that have been there for so long, to help us out a little bit. And then I would also request, and I think somebody brought this up already, that the intersection not be improved until there is an east-west connection. Because if you're going to get people off of Sunnyside Road, the only alternative is Vogel Road, which is essentially a one-lane road, no line down the middle, no shoulder, and it goes in front of an elementary school. So if we're going to fix one problem, we have to make sure that we're not putting all those cars on the side roads, which cannot handle them here. There's just no place for them to go. Anyway, I want to thank you all for addressing the congestion and traffic issues here. I am sorry I'm late to the party. I am a small business owner. I'm dealing with an elderly parent, and I would have wished I would have got more than a postcard in the mail, given how much this impacts my business and my life. So my son brought this to my attention. He's an engineer. He doesn't even live here in the city, but he said, "Mom, do you know what they're doing to your business?" And I'm sorry that I'm just now becoming involved. But anyway, I would love to be involved more in the future because I did work on the TSP. And Karen, I missed your presentations at C4. It was, you were always very informative and lots of wisdom. So there's that. And I would love to hear more about this from you guys in the future, but I hope nothing happens until all of this is resolved as a holistic package.
Well, Ms. Helm, just a couple of points. I'll try to address, some of the questions that you raised. An important thing in looking at the illustrations here that are in the plan is that they're illustrations only. They're not engineered documents.
Perfect.
And so, for instance, the one that you pointed out of the intersection of Foster and 212, where it appears that the road is going to be right at the wall of those two buildings on the west side there. That won't actually happen. This hasn't been designed yet. This is just a concept at this point. Another thing I'd mention to you is that the plan at that Sunnyside 212 intersection is that the left turn from Sunnyside to go east on 212 will actually be closed, and 187th Avenue will be improved, and we'll have a signalized intersection with 212, and that will be the opportunity for people to make the eastbound left turn who are coming from that Sunnyside area.
And so 187th right now is a gravel road.
I said it was going to be improved.
Wow, that's
It'll have to be
incredible.
improved to serve the purpose, but that is actually, it was one of our high priority projects. And as I mentioned, we eventually figured out that it was actually in Happy Valley. And so now it's one of their high priority projects.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Next.
Okay, next we have Christine Boatman. There she is.
Christine?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Excellent, thank you so much. Well, hello, and first off, thank you to all the commissioners for being here this evening to speak with the community about this plan. First, I would really like to thank Commissioner Brian Pascoe for sharing and speaking about the importance of representing members of unincorporated Clackamas County. I live in Damascus off of Emmy Street. I've spoken many times against the Happy Valley Comprehensive Plan, and no one is listening to residents. So I appreciate that there are commissioners who care about the residents of unincorporated Clackamas County. With this plan, a couple of concerns I have is that there's been a severe lack of public outreach. Nearly every neighbor who I've talked to in Damascus has no idea that this is happening and that these big changes are happening. One postcard or one email is simply not enough. I know public outreach is very expensive and very difficult, but these changes have huge impacts on people's neighborhoods and homes. So people deserve more input and more communication about what is happening. Another comment that I want to share is that nothing in this plan is addressing the large number of semi-trucks that are going to be brought in on Sunnyside Road and on 212 as a result of a large industrial complex that's being built on Armstrong Circle near 172nd and 212. There's going to be thousands of new semi-trucks brought in on that road, and that really needs to be addressed. Additionally, Emmy Street and Bel Air need to be addressed. Those are two neighborhood streets who are no longer going to have good access to 212 with all of this new congestion. Last up, I wanted to talk about the 187th plan. So the traffic circle there and the paving of that road is not a good idea. 187th is a dirt and gravel road. Your plan is making this into a very large road. This is a small county road where kids play. It's a road that has a church on it. It has lots and lots of homes on it. And paving this road into a large highway is going to destroy all of these people's homes and destroy this neighborhood. Also, these people have not been told. I walk my dogs out that direction, and I've had conversations with some of these neighbors, and they're horrified about what's being done with the paving of that road and the addition of that traffic circle. All of you guys need to understand that that's destroying a whole neighborhood and community. Additionally, that traffic circle on 187 is located right on a blind corner. So you guys need to be really careful about what you're putting as far as traffic controls in an area that's not safe. Thank you so much for listening.
Your microphone phone is off, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Christine, for coming. Any response from commissioners?
I was just going to say, I appreciate the comments on 187 because I was going to make them myself. I mean, the proposal honestly is to turn a gravel residential street into one of the county's major thoroughfares with barely any discussion around it, right?
I think there's a misunderstanding here. The proposal is to turn it into a 2-lane rural residential road with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Which is going to be the only left turn you can make on Sunnyside, which is going to send everyone who would normally come up Sunnyside down that road. It's just a really bad idea and needs a whole lot more discussion. It's just clearly being planned by people who do not live in that community. And there clearly has not been enough discussion around that.
Louise?
Yeah, I had a question. Do we have a deadline or timeline that we have to move forward with all of this immediately? Or is there time for more discussion, more community involvement? Because what I'm hearing is there needs to be more community involvement. People were not notified. People haven't heard about it. There's some real concerns. So what's the timeline around this? Are we being legislatively mandated for some of this? What's all that about?
Well, we're required to have a transportation system plan that covers the entire unincorporated area of the county. And so that's why we're taking this on. There is not a specific date certain by which we have to complete this.
So we do have time if we wanted to reach out more, discuss more. In other words, we don't have to move forward immediately.
No, we don't have to move forward immediately, but we do have to move forward eventually.
Okay.
Karen, may I ask your opinion of gaining more information on this with public outreach?
So one of the things that I was going to say, just in general, it is important to have one of the big things that this is doing is putting projects on our transportation system plan that allows for improvement. So we need to have those on before the investments can be made, just generally all of the different projects, just so we're holding that. I would also say that, yes, this is a very complicated area, and especially as we think about 187th, which 187th really is currently that boundary between the area that's being planned by Happy Valley and then the area that is currently being planned by Clackamas County, so that we can have transportation projects within that area to be able to invest in. And so that road upon which folks are talking about, which is a very important road, is falling within the Happy Valley plan because it's really serving those kind of growing uses, right? And it is, I think, as folks noticed, if we look into the Happy Valley plan, it is looking to change that function of that road from what is currently a local road to more of a collector road. But that's done with under the umbrella of Happy Valley. So I think that there is currently that Happy Valley plan is going through the processes of being updated. Their timelines, and Steve, you can correct me, is looking to update into the fall in their going to their planning commission and their city councils. So I do think that what I've heard is a lot of concerns about Highway 212 and ODOT and the projects that are in relationship to that, those regional projects. As we think about, if we set 187th aside, the other concerns really have to do with those projects along Highway 212 and what they look like. And maybe there would be an option to move forward with some of the projects outside, that are Clackamas County projects versus ODOT projects. But I think I would also end with the fact that it is critical for us to be able to include projects on the ODOT system within our plan if we are to ever find funding for them. I think that's one of the things that is helpful about this plan is it starts to provide some level of focus for what types of investments and the fact that investments are needed and what are the steps to get to solutions. And so without those projects on our plans, we can't, we have more difficulty advocating for funding for them. And really to see them constructed, we need to advocate for funding. So those are my various thoughts. And that I think Commissioner Murphy, you had asked specifically about whether or not we would gain from additional input. I do think in general, input is good. And what we may want to think about is a real focus level of input in those areas that we have heard the most concerns about.
Thank you, Karen. Just before we go to the other commissioners, I just want to comment, the reason I'm here is to represent my community. And I'm a voice that has to speak up. And I applaud Brian for speaking up. He lives in that neighborhood. And I wish Kevin Moss was here tonight, Commissioner Moss. He's from that area also. But let me move forward with Steve Schroedel, please. Commissioner Schroedel, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wanted to, again, it's great information, like seeing the data. Some things, when I see car accident data, then I kind of see that we're showing the data where people have risk of being harmed. And of course, I'm hearing that this is a priority so that improvements can take place in this area. But as somebody who grew up in this area, Damascus has been passed over, not upgraded, not current. And to see that Sunnyside could be a situation where people can't take a left-hand turn, it just feels like this isn't probably won't get the attention, won't ever get done until it's going to be forced upon Damascus to here's the solution you're going to have and just be happy with it versus what is good, better, or best in the design. If you have a good design that you can't take a left, how much more is it going to cost to take a left-hand turn? Because this community is being forced to grow, and they've been denied the ability to grow for 50 years. Either it was urban growth boundary or metro or the Clackamas County or Damascus. It just never has happened. And so it's been neglected, and now it's got congestion, it has accidents, and the plan is, well, we hope there's money. We do think there's money, but if something happens, then there's not money. Well, there's more accidents going to happen, and if we don't address it, it's our fault because we know where the problem is. Oh, that was me. That was me finishing. Thank you. Murph, you are muted.
Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you, Chair Murph. I'm not from this area, and quite frankly, I don't travel a lot in it a lot. And I'm just super thankful for Brian and Murph and Stephen who do, because this is such good input. Reading this, I just wouldn't have pulled it out. I know I feel crazy, but I'm looking at Stephen, this map. I'm sorry, can you show me 187? I can't even find it on there, and it will help me kind of orient what people are talking about. And that was it. That's me signing off. Thank you.
And Commissioner, one of the reasons you can't find it on there is it's not there. 187th is not in Damascus, it's in Happy Valley. Let me see here, I'm trying to find something that gives an overview of that section of Sunnyside.
I see 172nd, and then I see Foster, and it kind of sort of jumps clear out there to 222nd, but
Okay.
oh, there's 202. I'm not getting the visual of where that is, and it's currently a gravel road?
Yes, a
Okay.
gravel road.
Okay. It would just help me to figure out how it's tying in.
If you look at the map on page 31,
Oh, 31.
which is study area intersections, and it just so happens that the 187th is shown by it's the west edge. Do you see that red dot on 212 right on the west edge of the Damascus area there?
Right, number 11.
Yes, that is the intersection of 187th and Sunnyside.
Oh, okay. So it's clear down south. Oh,
Yes.
I see. Okay.
And so 187th runs from 212 up to Sunnyside Road. On the south side of 212, opposite 187th, is the intersection of Tong Road.
Okay. All right. I'm starting to get the visual now. Okay. Thank you. I don't need to waste too much time on this. I just couldn't get it. Thanks, Stephen.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, first off, Mr. Williams, I want to appreciate your work you've done on this. You obviously have done a lot of work with this. My concern right now is that it appears that you took the input, and I can appreciate that, from the community, and the planning staff did a job of putting it all together and trying to come up with something that worked. But it appears to me, at least to me, that the final product, which is what we're looking at here, was not communicated to the people in the area that's being affected. And so they didn't understand, or they don't understand exactly what you're recommending. And that was the main problem here, is that we need to go back and let them take a look at what you're recommending and get their input on what your recommendation is. Because what I'm understanding here is we have some issues, and those need to be addressed. And for us to proceed, we need to take those into account. It's like going in and getting an opinion and then finding a recommendation, but not understanding how that recommendation was arrived at. And so, once again, good work, but we need to get that out to the community so that they can respond properly. Thank you.
Well, this has been available on the Clackamas County website for over 2 months. If you want to get a good description of the proposed projects, you can look in Chapter 5, starting on page 33, where those are where pictures are shown of them and they're described in some detail. And you can also look in chapter 6, which has the full list of all of the proposed projects, starting on page 42 and extending to, let me see here, to page 45.
Commissioner Murphy, if I may, we're getting into a lot of deliberation and I share some of the responsibility for that, but I really think we should move through the public testimony and circle back to this discussion once we've heard from people.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
I don't think there is any other public.
Thank you, Brian. There's no more public testimony, so that would put us, Chair, down at, whoops. Where are we in the script?
You're around J?
Okay.
Okay, close hearing. Public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Planning Commission discussion. Are there any further questions of staff from the Planning Commission? Is there any discussion by the Planning Commission? Brian, I know you, let's lead this off.
I'm just going to put it out there that the way I get to yes, and I hate this, right? I always want to support the staff and vote yes on these things. But the only way I get to yes on this is if we have an understanding that the 6 Happy Valley projects only move forward in conjunction with Regional Project 4099, which is the development of that Sunnyside intersection. That's the only way I can get behind allowing that for the county explicitly allowing expansion of all these roads that are going to cause a greater problem. I need to see that there's going to be a long-term solution here. And I understand if that can't happen from the staff's standpoint, but I can't vote for it if that's not present.
So are we asking to move this up a tier? Right now it is.
I would vote yes if there was a clause in here that said basically that, what is it? That there's 6 projects that are connected. There's 4 of them in tier 1 and 2 of them in tier 2.
Right.
If it was clear that the county is not moving forward with those projects until unless they're implemented in conjunction with Project 4099, the regional project, then I'm in support of this. I think they're good projects. It's just missing one critical component, which if it's not there, breaks the entire system throughout this whole community.
Commissioner Schroeder.
It ultimately, it means telling ODOT and Happy Valley that these projects are not moving forward until ODOT really, truly, and genuinely makes this a priority. Because that's the only way, in my mind, that ODOT's going to come around, is if the county is putting this type of pressure to get that project, to get that intersection fixed and addressed.
We should table this until we could get some resolution on your concerns, Brian.
I mean, I'm sensitive to Karen's argument, right? Which is we need to get projects on a transportation plan so that we can get funding for them. The problem is that in my mind, these projects need to be funded in coordination with a major project at ODOT, right? And so I don't think the answer is to say no entirely or, to postpone this indefinitely. We've got to find a way to bring ODOT to the table on this.
So we as a commission could add this as an amendment to what's being offered. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think you could. I think it's really unfortunate that Kevin Moss isn't here because I think he would have plenty to say on this as well. It's just unfortunate that our commissioner who's representing this area is not present tonight.
Absolutely. Commissioner Schroeder, you have something to say? You live close by.
Yeah,
I think Martha has something to say too.
oh, yeah, come back to me, please.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand what Commissioner Pasco is asking. Are you talking about somehow conditioning the completion of the projects that are numbered on table 5.3a somewhere in the 1138?
1140, 1141, 1142, 1143, 2045, and 2046. I would condition them on implementation of Regional Project 4099.
So is that something, Karen, that would effectively move them to a different tier? I mean, we don't usually condition projects in our tables on anything else, but it seems like there may be a way to tie this as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Am I way off here, Karen and Jennifer?
And generally, that was my thought, right? That it would allow us to pass this proposal, but also be really clear that we're not going to allow these projects to move forward until ODOT comes to the table. It allows us to put these projects on our map and to seek funding for them. But there's a contingency that has to be in place before any of them move forward.
And so a few things that I think about is that the projects that are listed in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 have different funding streams. And one of those funding streams very well could be the community road fund, or it could be system development charges. It is those funding streams that the county has control over. And to me, one of those things that it could happen is that it could keep investments from happening in Damascus on county roads until those investments that are on Highway 212 that require a much higher dollar commitment from state funds and a variety of funding sources. So in essence, it would hinder our investment in county roads. So, but I'm trying to think of a way that we could really shape as we think about, the next step with respect to the creating a recommendation to the board, and how that investment along Highway 212 can truly be highlighted as something that's critical in order to be able to support the entire area, and being able to message to the Board of County Commissioners that we need to be able to work together and prioritize those investments in Highway 212, and bringing ODOT to the table on those. So I think with that, I'm concerned about sending the message of delay on the investment on county roads.
But
I
the
really
county
think we
roads
need
that
to
we're
do that.
talking about are Sunnyside and Foster. Like, I don't understand what projects and investments you're talking about, because you identified the roads that are going to have these investments, and they're causing the problem. When we start expanding Foster and Sunnyside for the benefit of Happy Valley, it's just creating more and more problem at that intersection. And we should not be investing in those projects until there is a solution at that intersection. I don't care where the funding source is coming from.
Can I maybe jump in again, if it's okay?
Thanks, Martha.
I'm looking at the projects 1140, 1141 on Foster and Sunnyside Road, and the one thing that strikes me is those projects are not widening the road, they're widening the shoulder. So you have to keep in mind that this is still a quote unquote rural area that is following rural cross sections. The proposal is not to build these roads out to big urban cross sections. The proposal are to make some improvements to these roads to help with the safety and mobility through the road. But in this case, it includes widening the shoulder. And so I don't know if that maybe.
Which in turn is going to increase the traffic down those roads because they're going to be perceived to be safer and more easy to travel. And it's all feeding right into the Sunnyside, Foster Road, Anderson conjunction. Every time, and we saw this with the expansion of 172nd, right? Every time we do these projects, it increases traffic through this community with no solution in sight.
Commissioner Schroedel.
Okay. Well, as a relative to people who live down Anderson Road, who do remember the family farm that has their name, who are buried in the Pioneer Cemetery that's right there. Somehow their name got changed on the street sign. So it's supposed to be S-E-N, not S-O-N. And while we're talking about it, if I don't bring it up, I know I'm going to hear about this later. My only time to actually bring up that the family farm name actually is spelled wrong on the street name. And it would be nice if we could address it. But Tabasco and others, it's a concern. It's something that I don't think if we don't speak up now, I don't think this is going to be addressed have the best outcome possible. I think making sure that people know how strongly we feel about it, that's one way. Another way is actually voting, yes or no kind of mentality to send a stronger message. And I think we deserve better for that community. They have gone without for so long. A master plan, a better solution is needed. So thank you for all the work you do. And unfortunately, I don't know. Just thank you for everything you do.
I think the commission would benefit from the staff's I think we need to hear from the staff whether you would like us to vote this up and down, whether we should try to amend it, or whether you want to take some time to think about it. Given I think you can tell where everyone's sitting right now on this, and I think I would look to the direction of staff about how you would like to move forward.
Karen.
So one of the things, and again, I'm focusing on the 4,000 projects and the projects that are listed on that the regional capital projects list. And one of the things that I notice that I also think is very much related to this, that is currently listed as a medium project, priority project, is this planning effort to establish a long-term vision and conceptual alignment, cross-section, and access locations for Highway 212 between 172nd and Highway 26. So I think that the Planning Commission should spend some time talking about the need to articulate. I think you've already started this with regards to the communication to the board, to the importance of not just that investment. So there are capital investments that need to be made to Highway 212 that intersect Clackamas County roads. But there's also this kind of longer term vision of how all of those pieces work together. And that these are all high priority projects. And that I think the other piece that I'm hearing is that it's not just the investments to Highway 212, but the board needs to be very thoughtful about those investments to county roads that might cause increased traffic and impact then the partner road of ODOT's facility. So I do know that we do have a planning, a hearing that is before the board at the end of September. That's a part of this process. I think the Planning Commission can choose, and Jennifer and Martha can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there is space between now and then if the Planning Commission wanted to talk about this again, right, at a Planning Commission meeting. But I also think that the Planning Commission tonight could come up with language as a part of its recommendation to the board about how that Highway 212 corridor needs to be prioritized and treated within our plan.
Thank you, Karen. Commissioner Pack, you've been pretty quiet.
This is a really complicated effort. As I think we've all been expressing levels of appreciation and frustration. And I was trying to go back and see what we told Stephen and staff back in May when we had the work session. And I honestly can't remember, and I couldn't locate my paperwork very quickly, but I'm just trying to figure out, where the right place is. I'm really troubled by the two public testimony that was provided that indicated. I understand that the documents may have been on the website, but after receiving an award for doing an outstanding outreach on middle housing, it feels like what we did with this outreach may have been less than optimal. So I'm a little bit troubled by what we heard from the public today, and I'm just trying to assimilate everyone's thoughts and ideas, and trying to find if there is a happy medium place that we can move forward. That's where I'm looking for. I haven't quite gotten there, so that's why I'm being quiet, I guess.
Thank you. Louise, I haven't heard from you either much.
Oh, sorry about that. I was on mute. Well, I've been listening to everybody's comments. I don't live in that area, but I definitely heard from the public. And I am very concerned as well that even though we had it on our website and we sent them a postcard, they spoke to neighbors and friends in the area who hadn't heard about any of it. Maybe they didn't get their postcard. So I don't know. I'm really inclined to delay a positive recommendation on this, this issue, unless it has stipulations like Brian mentioned, or we just pause it and work on more community involvement. I mean, that's where I'm coming from. I've driven through that area. I don't do it very often, but it is a tangled snarl and it's terrible. And so I hear what they're saying, and I listen very carefully with the issues with Happy Valley. And yeah, I just can't feel good about a carte blanche recommendation on it as it stands.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I really echo what Carrie just said. It's exactly how I'm feeling. We didn't get much citizen input on such a huge project, but what we did get was well thought out, well put together, and meaningful, certainly to me. And I know that the Board of County Commissioners have copious amounts of documentation to read before they have hearings and make decisions. And so I'm definitely going to be more inclined to do a pause than I would say we support approval with this caveat, just because I think sometimes that can just get lost in documentation and communication. And so for the reasons that both Louise and Carrie shared, I'd like to actually do a pause. I'd actually love to see some sort of a committee, or not a committee, a group of Stephen and Murph and Brian and hopefully Kevin and our two speakers and a few other people, maybe invite both the CPOs and have a real serious sit down. But just to make sure that we're hearing what needs to be heard. But I agree with Brian's pressure needs to be put on ODOT. And if that takes citizens, if that takes CPOs, if that takes county, then I support it. And that's what I have to say.
Karen and Steve, what would a pause look like?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have not gotten a feeling from this discussion about what you want us to do during that pause. So I guess I would like some direction on that.
I mean, it would take some money and some time, but I honestly believe that if you polled the majority of Damascus, they would not support this plan. And I think there needs to be some outreach to the boring CPO. And I think post-pandemic, there needs to be more outreach and discussion with that community, which puts a significant delay on this project.
Ask a clarifying question, Commissioner Pasco. You're saying you don't think the community would support it because they want the improvement to Highway 212, or because they would not support widening? I mean, we get a fair amount of, I think, a fair amount of comment on our TSP in general, that there's a lot of rural roads that need shoulders. Like that's a popular thing. So I'm just trying to understand the nuance there, I guess.
I think the community sees this as a Happy Valley expansion plan, not a Damascus plan. 2/3 of the tier 1 projects are there because Happy Valley is expanding. Almost all the projects are on that west side of the project area. And again, this community has been asking for a solution to the 212 Sunnyside intersection for a quarter of a century and never gotten it. And that is the piece. Of course, everyone sees the value in widening these roads long term, but not if it means that we continue to ignore the core problem in this area, which we have been doing for decades.
I'd like to just add that last piece and just say it a little differently. If a community asks time and time and time and time and time again for meaningful improvements to their community over 50 years, and every which way they have turned to seek to get representation to improve their community, the answer has been no, nope, not that way, can't be done that way. I'm sorry, that's not going to work with this other agency. They have kind of given up. They don't think anything's going to happen this time as well. So their voice is very soft. And we are, and you're hearing from fellow commissioners, we're amplifying their soft voice because they don't actually believe nothing's going to change. It's going to be another 50 years and it's still going to have the same problem. So I want to see that there's going to be a meaningful change, not just that. As far as Mr. Williams, I don't know how that gets framed. So,
well, I think one thing you need to be aware of is that fixing this intersection is not a mystery. And it does not require extensive study. It's been studied, and it needs to be a traffic signal. But that has implications in and of itself. And people, although they do improve safety, don't tend to like traffic signals. And there are also some traffic issues that are going to result. So it's easy to identify what the ultimate fix is going to be. It's more a question of, can we work out all of the details, and will the public buy into that?
and I'd say just my voice is amplifying the people that we want to hear that there's a plan for this to actually be done, not just talked about being done. It's been 50 years.
Yes, but it's not just the city of Damascus that has to live with this. Like living on the east side, this is just another tangle you have to go through after going through Sandy. This is another tangle you have to go through just to get to a freeway if you're heading south. And it's getting worse as time goes on. So yes, we do need improvements. And 48 years, I've seen very little improvement on 212, especially those intersections. So this is the time to do it. We're in a position to do it, to make some changes. How do we do it? We need to be creative right now. Give Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams, is that not your job as a member of the Planning Commission and your engineering job to do that, to come up with a solution?
Well, as I noted a moment ago, the solution is easy. It's getting it done that's the hard part. It's on an ODOT road. ODOT would need to design and fund it. And they've got plenty of other priorities. So we would first have to convince ODOT that this was a high enough priority for the county that they would actually expend the funds to do the traffic studies and the design studies to figure out exactly what that intersection needed to look like, and then that they would commit the construction funds.
Just for clarity, my understanding is that the solution actually isn't that easy, because according to ODOT, you can't put a signal at one of those two intersections because Foster Road and Sunnyside are so close together. And so it actually requires a rerouting. There's been some discussion of a roundabout there. I don't know how much value that has, but it's more complicated, and I think, than just adding a traffic signal. There's a lot more engineering problems there. And because of that, because it is so complicated, it's just been put off and put off and put off.
Well, they would need to be coordinated. When traffic signals are that close together, they need to be coordinated. And there would probably also need to be consideration as to what the next traffic signal to the west would end up being. Would it be 187th? I mean, 172nd's already there. So one of the things that ODOT has on their to-do list, and I think Karen mentioned it, was a corridor study for 212 from 172nd all the way out to 26.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the next step, is to encourage ODOT to proceed with that corridor study.
Karen?
Yeah, so this has been very good conversation. And one of the things that I think about, and what I've heard, is a lot of conversation about the intersection between Highway 212 and Sunnyside. And then we heard also, in addition to that, testimony about 187th, right? And so one of the things I think about is sort of a pathway forward. And as we think about, I think one option that has been talked about is perhaps a pause or more community engagement or whatnot. And for at least the intersection between Highway 212 and Sunnyside, I'm not sure the solution is more engagement about that intersection with regards to whether or not it's how it's designed or its priority. I think we're hearing very loudly that intersection is a priority, right? And really more the question is how do we communicate that priority to the board, right? And not necessarily kind of reopening kind of the public conversation about, okay, board, should you reprioritize a certain set of projects over this or not? But it's more about communicating to the board the critical nature of this intersection. I think the other thing I think about is the importance of bringing our other partners to the table, because as we talk about this, we're talking, ODOT is an important player and they should be here, and they should be engaged in this conversation, if that makes sense. That's the place upon which we need to also be having that conversation, not necessarily isolated from the conversation just with the board. So I could see how it would be valuable to make sure that we're meeting with the board, the representatives from ODOT, as well as representatives from Happy Valley, because that is really that crux of that 187th that was brought forward with regards to public testimony. That is a critical element in the Happy Valley's planning process, and that impacts this whole area. So what I'm thinking is that being able to talk with those particular partners, have that really more narrowed engagement that would help you as a planning commission be able to more comfortably make that recommendation forward to the board. I think that type of engagement would be valuable to you.
Well, Karen, how do you propose doing that? Communicating with ODOT, are they going to be receptive? And is Happy Valley going to be receptive?
So Happy Valley and ODOT have been partners in this project. We did several workshops with ODOT as well as Happy Valley on these intersections along Highway 212. But I think that we need to have them here to talk about their prioritization process, talk about what the steps are that need to be moved, a project that's on a map to a project that's actually being constructed, right? We're trying to put projects on a map, but there's a whole other process where it takes to actually get projects constructed.
So
and
what is
that
it?
process involves.
Excuse me. What does it take from ODOT? What does it take from ODOT? It sounds to me like Happy Valley's okay with move forward, but we have some issues with ODOT.
I guess I would say that I would rather have ODOT answer that question than try to answer the question for ODOT.
Commissioner Schroedel?
Brian, you're muted.
I lowered my hand.
Sorry.
I already had a question asked.
I was just going to say, Karen, I think that's the opinion of the Damascus community, right? They've been trying to get ODOT to come to the table for decades, and the only way that's going to happen is for the county to force that question. I think we all want answers from ODOT, and I think the community is at the point where the only way it's going to happen is if Happy Valley and the county, Happy Valley feels enough pain and the county feels enough pain to pressure ODOT to actually come to the table with something more than just hollow promises.
And I'll jump in here, kind of going back to the proposal that you came up with first, Brian, is that the planning commission can make a recommendation as you have proposed to the board, right? That emphasizes, hey, this would be a pathway to communicate that to ODOT. I think I have hesitancy with that, and I think I've expressed that, but I think we're all trying to figure out how we move that prioritization forward. So I think what I heard your proposal is to remind the board of the interconnection between the way that they invest funds through those tier 1 and tier 2 projects, and how that is related to the projects along the highway, the ODOT system. And that, a statement like that could be made while at the same time recommending to the board that the plan be adopted with the acknowledgement that there can be in the future, right? Because that future investments be really connected to and thought about, and that they need to be understanding that those tier 1 and tier 2 projects impact the need for that investment on Highway 212. So I think that's the other option.
I mean, that being said, I was almost ready to make that motion, but the motion honestly would be more forceful and strident than you just articulated, right? In my opinion, those projects do not move forward until ODOT comes to the table. And that's how I would frankly phrase the motion in so many words. But I'm also sensitive to Tammy's argument around, we do this all the time. We pass things and with some amendments that ultimately kind of get ignored, and the full weight of our opinion is kind of lost. And, I wonder off the top of my head whether we should just vote this down. And then I would be willing to come back and offer a second motion with a stipulation. But I'd be really curious of what Tammy, your thoughts are on this. You've been around a long time, and you kind of know how the Board of County Commission responds to our recommendations. I'm happy to follow your lead on this as well.
Well, being around a long time, that might be an old person slam, but okay. Well, I mean, what I do is
I've been around about as long, don't worry.
Yeah, okay. I see the gray. I mean, I listen to the hearings and the study sessions and stuff, and it kind of really depends. It depends on their agenda and how big things are and how much is to be shared. And I'm not saying, for goodness sakes, that they ignore Planning Commission recommendations. They usually take them. But this is a very, as everyone has said, this is very big and very complicated. And I'm trying to visualize any planning or a Board of County Commissioners that live out there. No. Oh, wait, maybe Commissioner Scholl or maybe. Yes, he does. Okay. He would have a strong opinion on this, which would be great. I'd really love to hear that one for sure. But at this point, I hate doing this to the planning department. I hate it, but I think we need to vote it down, and we need to come up with a little better plan. Like, I don't know, how about the intersection is tier 1, and then everything else is a tier 2 and tier 3. It kind of makes it real clear, but I don't think we can do that.
I'm going to say a motion just to get people's reaction with it, right? So what if I moved that we recommend approval of ZDO 284 with great reservation, and only with the stipulation that projects 1140, 1141, 1142, 1143, 2045, and 2046 would move forward in conjunction with Regional Project 4099.
I would second that motion. I mean, well, and then we can have a discussion now. So I'll second it as a trial.
My thought process is that it would clearly state our view on this, but allow a path for more discussion, right? Karen, I'd be curious of your thoughts on that as well.
We have a motion and a second.
Martha, you look like you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to ask Brian to list those projects a little bit slower. I couldn't write that fast, but we can do that at the end. I don't want to hinder the discussion.
Yeah, I wasn't actually trying to make a motion, but tried to have a discussion. But yeah, I'm happy to restate that if you all feel like this is an appropriate way to move forward.
Would this have the most weight to it? I mean, that's what we're looking for. We're looking at bringing a message to our Board of County Commissioners at the seriousness of moving forward with this transportation plan, the Damascus Mobility Plan edition, that this has to be included. This is a standout.
And that is the strongest kind of motion I've ever heard go to the board. But I know Jennifer can speak to that for sure.
Jennifer, what's your opinion?
I mean, I think that motion is fine. I think it obviously raises the significant issue, and then we always share that with the board in our presentation, so they understand exactly what your concerns are. I don't necessarily think that the alternative, which is pausing, yeah, we could come back and 3 weeks or whenever your next meeting would be and have this discussion again, but I don't think it's going to look a whole lot different than it does right now. And I don't know that there's money and frankly allocated staff time to go out and do, you know, more outreach. And so I think that this, I guess I would say this strikes the balance. And, you know, I mean, from a practical perspective, I really don't know how much leverage we have over ODOT, but that becomes kind of a political question. And I also think that Karen's comments make sense that, you know, we are intended to be working as partners. And I would think that they would at least be willing to have the conversation. But what it really comes down to is the money. And that's, you know, that's kind of where we always end up, which is what you're saying. That's where we've been for 25 years or 50 years or however long it is. So
I agree with you, Jennifer, that I don't think more public comment is going to solve this problem. I really do believe that it's going to be political pressure on ODOT. And actually that political pressure doesn't come from the county, it comes from Happy Valley when the county says, we're not going to move these projects forward until ODOT comes to the table with a solution. That's how this gets done.
May I ask a question I have never asked before? Where's the Sunrise Corridor end?
I don't know if Karen did. I didn't hear the last part of your question. Gerald, there was something on the line.
Where does the Sunrise Corridor boundary end?
It ends at 172nd.
It does. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So a committee for the Sunrise Corridor would not have a say-so in this, or would not have any weight, so to speak.
Correct.
So we'd have, our CPOs would be the strongest as far as public outreach. Tammy, what would be your input on that?
Well, I wasn't really clear on how we settled on, is there an active Damascus CPO? Is there? There is one. Okay, got the nod.
There is, but I think it's been maybe in a state of transition. Like they reactivated the CPO, they had a chair, now they have a different chair, and that might have been what Diana Helm was referring to, that they may sort of be reconstituted Damascus CPO 2.0 now or something.
Okay. So in a situation like that, if that was happening in my area, and I'm super involved in CPOs and hamlets and stuff, is when something is big, I include everybody. I get Redland and I get Malino and I get, well, if Canby was active, I would get Canby involved. When any CPO is surrounding me that it's a big project, I as chair of the Beaver Creek, like CPO Hamlet, I'd personally be reaching out to include them. So, you know, I think CPOs are valuable. They are so important in this process. And if Damascus is in a phase of transition, we have two things. We have a staff liaison, a temporary one at this point, Stacy Davenport, but we also have a committee for community involvement. And if we have a CPO out there kind of getting their legs underneath them, CCI needs to be supporting them with education, bringing guest speakers in, guidance. I mean, that's the kind of thing we do out here all the time. When Malino had a big change, we were there in the meetings, giving advice, going to a restaurant, having conversations. I mean, that's what needs to be done. Does that answer your question, Murph?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you. Yeah. So if we make a motion, Brian, well, you already have, and I think somebody already seconded it. Stephen, did you already second that?
I seconded it, but I know that Brian said this was a trial.
Let me restate it, and Tammy can second it, and then we can officially get the motion on the table, and Martha can follow me this time. Does that sound right? So I would move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of ZDO 2884 with great reservation, and only with the stipulation that projects 1140, 1141, 1142, 1143, 2045, and 2046 would move forward only in conjunction with Regional Project 4099. And if I missed something on those projects, those are the projects that I perceive kind of feed into that intersection that are affiliated with Happy Valley, essentially, that that need to be put on hold before until this regional project is put in place.
And Brian, when I look at like the last page of the staff summary, what is it called? Staff recommendation or summary.
Yeah.
There's kind of a bit more like updates to tables and referred projects. And I don't know if we're going to need 2 motions.
Yeah, I defer to the
we want to
staff.
capture everything Stephen needs.
Martha, Karen, do we need to add something to this, or what are your thoughts?
All of those little pieces are encompassed in the recommendation to approve ZDO 284. They are all part of that. So you're fine.
Okay.
A long way of saying that,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Okay. Thank you, Brian, for that.
Okay, so Brian's fine, then I second the motion.
Okay. Ready for a vote? All in favor? Stephen?
Should we just raise our hand?
I think we need to do a call roll on this for the attendees, don't we?
Yeah, let's
Isn't that how we do it?
Yeah,
Which
good call roll on this one.
I guess me being Darcy would be me.
I can do it if you want.
No, it's fine. I have a list here. Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Pasco,
Yes.
Commissioner Pack.
Yes,
Was that a yes?
that's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Wilson. Okay, we'll come back to him. Commissioner Schrodel,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopes,
Yes,
Commissioner Wilson, are you back?
I think he's muted.
It's not showing.
Can you click a thumbs up or thumbs down maybe, or?
Raise hand, maybe.
Commissioner Murphy is yes.
Chair Murphy, that would be a yes. So what do we do when we have no answer?
It's fine. I mean, I think we have a quorum and we have even without, so it's
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So motion passes
Okay.
6-0 to 1, I suppose. We'll call him abstain. A forced abstain, it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah, maybe list that as not present and
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
Yeah,
probably
which is a
fair.
little bit different than an abstention.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Alternative or a second motion, or are we covered?
That's it. We're covered.
You're covered.
Steve and Karen and Martha, I appreciate everything that you've done on this as always. I couldn't get past this one. I'm sorry.
Does the chair need to officially close the hearing?
That's probably good.
I think. The very last sentence in the script.
Well, one of the things, I'm jumping probably ahead on the calendar.
Right.
I did see, did we not have an October 10th and an October 24th? I didn't see on
Tammy,
the.
before you move on, I think Murph needs to close the public hearing for Martha's benefit.
Oh, I thought he did. I'm
We
sorry.
can't, it looks like he's talking, but we can't hear it. I can't hear
Yeah.
him.
This public hearing is closed.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, but
So Tammy's asking a question about the schedule.
Yeah, there was an October, I think 10th, I thought we had something scheduled, and then there's a dinner on, I think, the 24th. It didn't, okay, I just want to make sure my calendar is correct.
So, yeah, so it looks like, yeah, it looks like October. So first of all, for September, we do not have anything. So, and I don't anticipate that we will have anything. We can officially cancel September 12th, and I will have Darcy notify you by email about the 26th when it gets just a little bit closer, but the 12th is canceled. October 10th, we thought we were going to do a public hearing on the minor amendments package, but that's getting pushed out a little. So October 10th is open right now. The 24th is the Pcbcc dinner, which we'll do in person at the DSB auditorium starting at 6. So it'll be like food and socializing starting at 6 and then the meeting at 6:30. And we don't have an agenda at this point. I mean, we'll figure that out, but some sort of conversation starters or whatnot. We'll ask the board what they want to talk about. We can certainly ask you what you want to talk about. So there's really no plan quite yet, except we are resurrecting the annual in-person dinner. So that'll be nice. And then just today we scheduled, Martha actually has a comp plan amendment and zone change application in for a private, just a private party has applied. And that will be November 14th. So that'll be added to the schedule, but we just decided that today. And then as you can see on the schedule, November 28th, we're now hoping that will be the minor and time sensitive amendments, with December 12th as our backup date for that, just depending on how the timing comes together. And then of course, December 26th is the legal holiday for Christmas this year. So we're not gonna meet that day. All right, so we will let you know for sure about September 26th and October 10th, but September 12th is canceled.
Okay. Jennifer, just a heads up, I'm not sure that I can attend on the 24th, the dinner. I have a conflict I'm trying to resolve. So just a heads up on that. I'm doing my best to fix it, but I don't know.
Yeah, if anybody else knows they can't make it, if you could let Darcy know as soon as possible, because we certainly wouldn't want to have it and then have, 2 planning commissioners come or something. That would not be ideal. We can always look for a different date if that's what we need to do.
Having 2 Board of County Commissioners is okay, but not 2 planning commissioners.
I didn't say that, Brian. I didn't.
Oh yeah.
There's 9 of you.
Man,
Just remember.
that means like clean clothes and taking a shower and being in person with real people again.
A
This is
commute.
kind of scary.
That's exciting. Darcy's going to have to get some catering pulled together, or pizza or something.
You might want to send out the address to the location, because some of us, like myself, I've never been there.
Never been here. I know. That's a good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Look forward to meeting everybody in person.
I don't have anything else. I don't think. Some of you missed Martha's announcement at the beginning, reminding me that we do in fact have a job opening. So if anybody knows anybody who wants to be and is qualified to be a senior land use planner, that posted last Monday. So we are recruiting, as we've got some holes at the moment. So
I think Kelly from DLCD heard that also. So she used to be a planner for, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep your sights on that one. Yeah. Well,
okay.
Mr. Williams, thank you so much.
Yes.
Didn't go all the way through with this, but we expressed our opinions. And thank you for the job you did. It's awesome. Karen, as usual, outstanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I understand what you mean about having jobs and projects ready to go, because you never know. We might get an infrastructure bill or something, and you might have money. You never know.
I too would just like to say, Karen, thank you. Stephen, Martha, as always. Jennifer, all of you, thank you so much.
Congratulations, planning. Thank you on your outreach.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody. I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Here.
Are we adjourned, Murph?
We are adjourned.
Great. Good night, everyone.
Have a good night,
night.
everybody.
Night.
Good night.